Revealed, amazing daughter of a maid surprises millionaire with hidden genius on Dutch call. Lily was diving into the chaos of her shift at the cafe when the familiar sound of an old friend broke through her determined focus. She barely managed to take a breath between orders when David, an exuberant face from her college days, seized her attention. "Lily. Is that really you?" he called out, his voice cutting through the whirlwind of lunch rush customer chatter. As she turned, a playful smirk formed on her lips, and before she knew it, they were deep in conversation, Dutch words spilling effortlessly from her mouth, stirring a hidden talent she had long buried beneath waitressing tips and textbooks. It was a whirlwind moment, laughter mingling with the aroma of coffee and greasy fried food. David's eyes sparkled in surprise, and the exchange felt like reconnecting a piece of herself she feared she might have lost. Yet in the back of her mind, a nagging doubt started to creep in. This was just a fleeting conversation. What did it really mean? Would it be enough to actualize the dreams she'd been nursing for years, no matter how faintly? "Lily, you've got to present this. You're brilliant," David insisted, grabbing her shoulders as if shaking her to life. He talked about Richard Van Zandt, a heavyweight entrepreneur, and a chance to present her newfound linguistic skills. Excitement bubbled inside her, but was it really possible? Could the daughter of a maid really seize such an opportunity? The specter of her mother's sacrifices loomed large. Marta, her mother, had forged a path through sweat and toil. Could Lily rise above, or would she remain anchored by her humble roots? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the thought of meeting Richard burrowed into her mind, anxiety surged. What would someone like him, with all his privilege and success, want from a girl who wore grease stains and had no family connections in high places? The feeling of inadequacy was suffocating. It was hard to shake off the feeling that Richard might dismiss her based on her background alone, a ghost lurking over her potential like a dark cloud. Days stretched into an agonizing wait, each tick of the clock fueling her trepidation. When the moment finally arrived, she walked into Richard's vast office, trying to steady her racing heart and uneven breath. The austere surroundings were intimidating, history hung in the air, mixing with the faint scent of expensive cologne. Richard's scrutinizing gaze lingered on her. The inferiority complex gripped her chest, whispering doubt into her mind. Did she belong here? Could she rise above the tension of class prejudice, or was she destined to be seen merely as the maid's daughter? Then, when Richard finally spoke, his skepticism cut through her anticipation like a knife. What she had prepared began to feel unworthy, her confidence waning. Each second that passed felt heavier, smothering her dreams. With everything on the line, she stood at the crossroads, emotions gnawing at her, an unyielding desire to prove herself painfully intertwined with the paralyzing fear of failure. As his dismissive air settled around them, a new truth unfolded. Her worth was now wrapped in questions she never wanted to confront. And just when she thought she might reclaim her strength, an unexpected revelation about her mother's past came crashing down, leaving Lily questioning everything she thought she understood. In the aftermath of the meeting, Lily felt as if the world around her had shifted ever so slightly. Her nerves still buzzed from Richard's cold appraisal, and yet the revelation about her mother was an anchor pulling her deeper into a realm of uncertainty. Marta had always been a fortress, her life woven with the tales of resilience and sacrifice. But with that revelation, the truth about Marta's youthful aspirations and the dreams she had abandoned, came a flicker of hope and an undeniable challenge. If Marta had once dared to dream big, could her daughter not do the same? Lily spent the following days oscillating between exhilaration and paralyzing fear. The cafe, which had once felt like a cocoon, now seemed suffocating. Her shifts became a stage where she performed, masking her vulnerability with laughter and casual banter. The images of Richard's disdain haunted her work, yet David's words echoed louder, urging her to pursue the opportunity waiting at her fingertips. Every glance of her reflection mirrored the internal struggle. She was still a waitress, still the daughter of a maid, but was she not also capable of something greater? Could she stand tall in spaces designed for those from gilded backgrounds? The distance between her and the world of entrepreneurs was vast, yet each quiet moment sparked a plan, an unyielding seed of determination planted in the fertile soil of her mind. She began to sketch out her ideas and formulate a presentation she could give to Richard, one that would prove her worth beyond the initial impressions. This was about more than just confirming her abilities, it was about honoring her mother's sacrifices. Evenings that had once found her washing dishes and cleaning tables were now filled with research and writing, her mind racing to capture insights and inspirations. But self-doubt lurked at every juncture. Each draft she wrote felt lacking, every attempt to channel her brilliance was met with a familiar whisper of inadequacy. What made her think she could captivate an audience of elite professionals when her self-image was steeped in the shadows of being underestimated? In quiet moments, Lily recalled the fire in her mother's eyes when she spoke of her own dreams that seemed to fade into the background as life took demanding turns. What would she have done? Lily thought, the pang of longing for her mother's guidance striking deep. Marta had carried the weight of responsibilities that had silenced her own ambitions. But perhaps in that silence lay the strength for Lily to rise up from the ashes of doubt. One fateful afternoon, amid the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the warm hum of chatter, Lily encountered an old custodian from her college, Mr. Pendleton. He had always seen potential in her that she struggled to acknowledge in herself. Their conversation shifted from pleasantries to profound insights and, with each word, he reinforced Lily's belief in her hidden capabilities. "You're not what they expect, and that sets you apart," he said, eyes twinkling with wisdom. "Your story, the authenticity of it, will be your strongest asset." As she absorbed his encouragement, a realization sparked within her. It was not about fitting into the world she longed to join, it was about redefining her rightful place within it. The journey ahead was daunting, but now she was armed with more than just courage, she held a newfound purpose. With the pressure of anticipation building, and the countdown to her potential meeting with Richard looming, she steeled herself for the moment that could change everything. Determination began to seep into her veins as the urgency to prove herself built. But just as she resolved to finalize her presentation, the door to the unknown swung wide open. A call from David alerted her to a gathering that could turn her dreams into a tangible reality. A gathering where Richard himself would be the keynote speaker, an opportunity to face her fears head-on. The time had come to confront the ghosts of doubt and show the world who she truly was, but with this opportunity came the realization that she may have to reveal more than just her brilliance. She might also unearth secrets that could transform her understanding of herself and her family. What awaited at this gathering could either solidify her path or dismantle everything she thought she knew. Would she step forward? The gathering loomed closer, an electrifying mix of excitement and dread igniting a fire within Lily. Each day melded into the next, filled with the rhythmic clinking of coffee cups at the cafe, which now felt more like training ground than backdrop. As she flipped through her hastily scribbled notes and tentative slides for the presentation, she couldn't help but wonder if the half-formed notions of her ideas would be enough to impress Richard. They were bold, ambitious concepts that challenged conventional thinking. Yet, with every shift she worked, the weight of uncertainty pressed against her chest. Would they resonate with a seasoned businessman? Would they elevate her from the monotonous routine that had defined her life until now? After closing one evening, Lily found herself staring into the darkened cafe, lost in thought. The empty tables echoed the emptiness she felt within. She took a deep breath, her shoulders tense. What is it that I truly want to achieve? She asked herself, the question both empowering and frightening. She could feel the flickering echoes of her mother's dreams wrapped around her, guiding her toward the answer: resilience. Marta's sacrifices were not simply tales of lost potential, they were steeped in the strength to overcome obstacles, and now, that legacy fell into Lily's capable hands. It was then that a plan solidified in her mind. During the days leading up to the gathering, she would not just prepare her presentation, she would create an experience. Lily began refining her slides into a narrative, a story that intertwined her vision with the legacy of courage inherited from her mother. It wasn't enough to list ideas, she sought to enrapture her audience with authenticity. But the familiar specter of self-doubt loomed large. As the gathering approached, fear whispered insidiously, "You don't belong. They see through your facade." Each time she rehearsed, those sentiments clawed at her confidence, threatening to dismantle the very structure she was building. Faced with the need to confront these demons, she recalled Mr. Pendleton's words once again. "Authenticity is your strongest asset." The mantra blazed in her mind. It was time to embody that authenticity fully, to embrace her narrative with pride rather than shame. There was strength in her journey, an underdog story that not only highlighted her struggle but the universal challenge of rising above expectations. Finally, the day of the gathering arrived, painting the early morning with an exhilarating hue of promise and anxiety. She dressed meticulously, choosing an outfit that articulated professionalism yet reflected her unique identity. Standing before the mirror, she whispered affirmations, reminders of her worth and capabilities. As she entered the venue, who were all these ambitious individuals, each one a questioning gaze? What kind of presence would she command among them? But before she could spiral into panic, David's reassuring face caught her eye from across the hall. "There you are. I was starting to worry you'd bail," he said, a broad grin lighting up his features. Lily chuckled nervously. "Well, I might still, if my nerves keep acting up." He tilted his head in mock disbelief. "Have you looked at your notes? You've got this." They exchanged last-minute encouragements, but the moment of truth was approaching. As Richard took the stage, her heart raced, feeling like the ground was trembling around her. The time had come not only to speak but to listen closely to what might be revealed about her ideas and more intimately, about herself. As he began his keynote, discussing innovation and disruptive thinking, something shifted inside Lily. It wasn't just about proving herself, it was a revelation waiting to be unearthed. Would Richard's insights illuminate a path she had yet to envision? And would she gather the courage to stand before him and present her own vision, her pride mixed with the fear of exposing her innermost self? With resolve building deeper within her, she could feel that this gathering had the potential to change everything. Would her authenticity shine through the overwhelming noise? Would she truly step forward into the light, not just as a waitress carving her niche but as a formidable contender in a realm she once deemed impossible? The answer awaited her, just beyond the threshold of the stage. As Richard concluded his keynote, the energy in the room crackled like static electricity. Lily's heart echoed the same frantic rhythm as the applause that rang out, yet her pulse felt isolated, a frenetic drum in a sea of calm. She clenched her notes tighter, feeling the silk of the paper brushing against her palm, grounding her momentarily. With each clap, a surge of determination coursed through her veins. She had spent so many late nights doubting whether her ideas could stand among those of established titans, yet here she was, on the precipice of avowing her worth. Waiting to be asked to present felt both like an invitation to fly and an impending plunge into a chasm of fear. She was startled from her thoughts when David leaned in closer. "Are you ready? You're going to blow them away," he urged, his eyes gleaming with infectious enthusiasm. "I have to be," she whispered back, her voice trembling slightly. The overwhelming stakes of this moment had become unbearably real. If she faltered now, would her aspirations dissolve into the ether once more? It was time. Richard pointed toward her, a welcoming gesture that felt like an anchor in a storm. With an unsteady breath, she rose, moving through the throng of experts and dreamers until she stood in front of the audience. A series of expressions: curiosity, skepticism, and hope met her gaze. Lily inhaled deeply, centering herself in the present. The lights dimmed slightly, illuminating only the space where she stood. She shifted her focus inward, recalling the legacy encircled in her mother's spirit, a reminder that this was about more than just her. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm Lily, and I'm here to share a vision that I believe challenges how we perceive innovation today. Her slides transitioned smoothly, echoing the narrative she had crafted meticulously over the past few days. She interwove her personal journey of resilience with her innovative ideas, allowing moments of vulnerability to cut through her rehearsed perfection. The pain of setbacks transformed into bridges that connected to her concepts, striking the chords of authenticity that Mr. Pendleton had urged her to resonate with. As she spoke about her ideas, the world around her dissolved. The cafe seemed to fade, the rhythmic sound of coffee grinding becoming a distant echo as her thoughts flowed effortlessly. Whether it was the bite of passion or fear, she didn't know, she simply poured it all into her words, daring to expose her self-doubt and illuminating it with bright flashes of inspiration. It wasn't until she reached the conclusion, drawing a parallel between courage and innovation, that she noticed Richard leaning forward, an intrigued glint in his eyes. It felt surreal that a figure so formidable could genuinely be engaged by her thoughts. Might this actually be the turning point she yearned for? Applause erupted as she finished, a tidal wave of validation drowning her previous fears. When Richard approached her at the front of the stage, his expression softened, revealing not just a businessman, but a mentor who saw potential. "Your approach was refreshing, Lily. Let us discuss your ideas further," he said, the invitation igniting a whirlwind of excitement and trepidation within her. "Thank you so much," she replied, battling from being overwhelmed. The corner of her mind brought forth the specter of self-doubt. Could this truly be real? As they shifted to a quieter corner, Richard's questions deepened, delving into aspects of her vision that stirred the embers of her creativity. Each inquiry felt like an unveiling, encouraging her to think beyond the confines of her previous expectations. Yet, even as she engaged, a creeping uncertainty began to surface. Was she ready for this opportunity? Would she rise to this challenge, or would insecurities overpower her newfound empowerment? In a moment of revelation, she realized that this was not just about professional validation, it was a test of her very essence. Taking a step back, she contemplated her intentions. Was she chasing the dream or simply running from the shadows of her past? A choice lay before her, one that would dictate her path moving forward. Would she seize this chance to leap into the unknown, or let it slip away, clinging to the safety of what she knew? As Richard awaited her response, the air grew thick with anticipation, standing on the brink of a transformative decision. Yet, before she could answer, an unexpected voice shattered the moment. "Why should we listen to you?" A harsh tone interrupted, tinged with disdain. Lily's heart dropped, pulled into a sudden confrontation. The challenge loomed not just externally but within her. Could she confront this moment head-on, or would the shadows of doubt return to engulf her once more? Lily's mind raced as she turned toward the source of the interruption, a man in the front row with a scowl etched across his brow. He was dressed in a tailored suit, but his disdainful gaze stripped away any pretenses of respectability. Her heart thudded painfully, an unsettling reminder of the self-doubt she had fought so hard to suppress. It was a baiting question that left her teetering on the edge of her confidence, a line unscripted and fraught with potential downfall. Taking a steadying breath, she forced herself to meet his eyes. "Because," she began, the tremor in her voice dissipating as she regained composure, "innovation isn't about titles or backgrounds, it's about ideas, and I believe I have something valuable to share." The audience shifted slightly, their gazes bouncing back and forth between her and the outspoken critic. Lily felt the weight of the chatter that danced around her, demonstrating how fragile momentum could be. The applause from moments before felt like a distant memory, replaced by this stark confrontation that threatened to unravel the tightly crafted narrative she had just built. "Really?" he volleyed back, a cruel smile teasing the corners of his lips. "And what makes you think your perspective is worth our time? Your experience doesn't seem very prestigious." Doubt clawed at her again, but she could not afford to falter, not now. This was the moment she had prepared for, the moment where the audience would either accept or reject her. She could sense Richard's attentiveness from the corner, a silent assurance building the strength of her resolve. "Prestige doesn't guarantee value," Lily countered, her voice steadied with renewed intensity. My ideas stem from genuine experiences and the desire to create change. I've encountered challenges that forced me to innovate from a place of necessity, which is often where the most impactful ideas are born. As she spoke, she felt her fire reignite. The memories of late nights and unyielding fears rushed back, but instead of tearing her down, they buoyed her resolve. She laid her journey bare, intertwining her struggles with her insights, illustrating how adversity had shepherded her to this very moment. The challenge, once paralyzing, transformed into fuel. Several faces in the audience softened in response, realizing that her voice, her very presence, brought authenticity that far outweighed any titles or accomplishments. She could sway this conversation. She realized now that her argument was not solely about her ideas, but about proving her worth in this world that often overlooked the unconventional. Maybe I'm not the traditional expert you'd expect, Lily continued, her gaze unwavering now. But isn't it time to embrace a new wave of thinking? A challenge to the status quo rather than a regurgitation of established norms. I'm here to add value through a lens that is seldom acknowledged. Her confidence grew with each word, and the murmurs in the audience transformed, now teetering between intrigue and contemplation. Richard's brow raised subtly, an approving nod hidden within his serious demeanor. The critical man opened his mouth as if to counter, but before he could, Richard interjected. No one is asking you to agree with her, but real innovation often comes from unexpected sources. Lily has captured a perspective that deserves our attention. The shift was palpable. Lily felt the tide turn, the very air around her shifted, humming with a newfound surge of empowerment. Combating the antagonism had awakened something fierce within, shedding the remnants of her former self-doubt. As the antagonist settled, disarmed and seemingly unimpressed, the immediacy of her situation dawned upon Lily. Overwhelming voices from her past attempted to creep back in, reminding her of previous failures, of voices that told her she wasn't enough. Yet that narrative now felt stale. She was breaking free of it, brick by brick. Richard's focus remained on her, his respect palpable as he posed another question. How do you see this vision translating into a real-world application? And as she prepared to answer, the enormity of what lay ahead hit her. In that moment, she understood she wasn't just defending her ideas, she was standing up for herself, advocating for the power that resilience could provide. She was ready, but doubt did not entirely vanish. The underlying fear remained, a lingering whisper, what if you can't follow through? Each presentation was a step into the unknown, and she realized that the road ahead would not only test her resolve but would redefine what she was truly capable of. The room buzzed with anticipation, and as she gathered her thoughts to articulate the path ahead, she felt something shift within her. This was just the beginning. How far would she be willing to go to prove her worth, and what warring instincts would vie for control as she walked this uncharted territory? Lily's heart raced as she began to outline her vision to the audience. The questions that Richard posed ignited not just her mind, but her spirit. Each word she crafted felt like a declaration rather than a response. She drew on her experiences, recalling nights spent feverishly working on projects that had once seemed insurmountable. These recollections transformed her anxiety into a cornerstone of her argument. I envision a collaborative platform that breaks down barriers, she said, her voice gaining clarity and strength, one that empowers those who have been marginalized in innovation and creativity. It's about democratizing access to resources and ideas, making them available for anyone willing to explore them. Lily locked eyes with audience members, weaving in anecdotes of people she had met whom circumstance had silenced. She spoke of her old neighborhood, where brilliant minds went unnoticed, and where she once struggled to fit into a world defined by exclusivity. With each story, she illustrated how, when given the right support, those same minds could redefine industries, leading to untold innovations. As she spoke, the critic's frown faded, replaced by a look of calculation. For the first time, Lily felt emboldened by the thought that her words had begun to matter not just to her, but to others who had been waiting for a voice. The tension in the room shifted. Where once there was skepticism, curiosity flickered like candlelight, and the initial hostility from the front row receded. Richard's expression showed willingness to explore her ideas, and with that, a vision solidified in her mind. She was no longer just presenting her thoughts. She was carving out her space within this universe that had seemed so exclusive moments ago. Feeling the momentum on her side, she articulated her plan to incubate grassroots projects, small-scale innovations that would, over time, compound into significant shifts in perception and execution within the larger sphere. Each example rooted in her reality, she could see threads connecting her history with her aspirations. Buried fears trying to pull her back into the shadows lingered in the periphery of her mind, but she soldiered on, committed to ushering others into the light of opportunity. "I am not the voice of authority many expect," she proclaimed, "but rather one of many potential contributors to a bigger narrative, the narrative that ultimately leads to accountability and inclusion." Gradually, heads among the audience began to nod. The tide was shifting, curiosity morphed into engagement. She could see Richard's eyes glimmer with respect, and her spirit surged with resilience. However, the lingering question still beckoned in the back of her mind: was she ready for this challenge? The stakes began to feel vast, and though self-doubt still lurked in the corners, Lily's growing determination began to drown out its echoes. As she rushed to the conclusion of her segment, the audience appeared captivated, their attention transforming from mere observers to potential allies in her mission. The last words left her lips with conviction: "Let us create a collaboration that thrives on untapped potential, where ideas are not stifled by privilege, but celebrated for their authenticity." Suddenly, the critic raised his hand again. Silence enveloped the room, even the air felt charged. Every fear she had once cradled now threatened to spill forth as a challenge. What if his question resurfaced every self-doubt she debattled? "Can you back this up with practical examples and a clear framework?" He tossed the challenge into the space, his tone probing yet civil. Lily steadied herself. "Of course. Drawing from personal experiences, I can illustrate a path." Yet, something profound stirred in her: the realization that every successful venture is contingent on the willingness to embrace discomfort and uncertainty. The moment was no longer just a test of her knowledge, it was a test of her grit and resilience. As she prepared her detailed response, ready to confront whatever came next, the stakes felt elevated. The question weighed heavier than the others, and as she began to speak, another thought flashed through her mind: this was her moment of reckoning. Would she rise to the occasion, or would this confrontation lead her down the path of her old fears? Lily inhaled deeply, feeling the slight tremor of her hands betray her outward facade of confidence. The tension in the room was palpable, each gaze urging her not only to respond but to emerge victorious from this pivotal moment. She could feel Richard's scrutiny, a silent battle of wits unfolding between his expectations and her burgeoning resolve. "Let me take you back to my neighborhood," she began, her voice carrying the weight of personal history. "We had a community mural project that aimed to not only beautify our environment but also teach kids about collaboration and artistic expression. The project faced considerable roadblocks. Initially, funding was scarce, and many in the community were skeptical about the impact of such initiatives. However, the moment we found a local artist willing to mentor the children, everything changed." Her voice slightly trembled, but she pressed on, stepping further into this narrative. "I learned that by simply building bridges and leveraging existing talents, we could over time create something profound. This was not just paint on a wall, it represented our stories, our resilience. The synthesis of our shared experiences led to a final product that sparked local pride and inspired more projects down the line. This encapsulates my vision: a framework for fostering grassroots innovations where the stories of individuals can reshape the community." Lily observed Richard's expression. His earlier skepticism had transformed into a keen interest, revealing a hint of respect. Encouraged, she continued with renewed vigor. "Now, considering the digital age we live in, I propose a platform that harnesses these principles further, where anyone can pilot their projects regardless of their network. This is more than an idea. It's a call to action that includes vetting systems for this mentorship concept, fostering training modules led by skilled contributors. We would establish a space not only for launching ideas but nurturing them. This framework exists to validate individual narratives through tangible support." As she spoke, a flicker of recognition sparked within her, this wasn't merely about defending her concept, it was a moment of clarity. She was embodying the resilience she had always admired in others. This revelation fortified her stance, and with each word, she felt layers of self-doubt peeling away. This synergy will also feature an accountability aspect, reviewing the progress of projects and adapting mentorship based on success rates. Just like that mural, every small step we take can snowball into significant community shifts, proving that innovation can thrive when rooted in authenticity. Richard's brows slowly unfurled, and for the first time, Lily saw hope blossom instead of mere skepticism in his eyes. She sensed the energy in the room evolving from cautious engagement to palpable enthusiasm, but a new surge of anxiety washed over her. This newfound connection with the audience brought substantial pressure. They had leaned in with hope, and now the weight of their expectations anchored her feet. Would these ideas stand the test of time? Could she truly harness the authenticity and passion she spoke of to enact change? The profound realization dawned on her: the journey she sought to undertake was not just for others but a transformative process for herself. Then, as she neared the conclusion, the same critic spoke up again, breaking the lingering silence. And how would you handle setbacks within this framework? When inevitably some projects fail, what will you do then? Lily felt her heartbeat hammer in her chest. He had struck at the core of her insecurities. Failure had always been a shadow in her attempts. Yet, something within her sparked a thought: how could she not practice what she preached? Every experience is a lesson, she replied, steadying herself. Part of my commitment involves creating a culture around learning from failures, where setbacks are not the end but stepping stones for reinvention. This builds resilience both for individual projects and for all involved in the face of adversity. With those words hanging in the air, an unexpected calm washed over her. She recognized now, more than ever before, the necessity for grit and continuous adaptation to navigate this journey. Would she finally embrace the uncertainty that lay ahead with confidence, or would seeking perfection derail her efforts? As the audience appeared intrigued, Lily's mind shifted to future possibilities. This was more than a presentation, it was a fundamental shift in her career trajectory. Despite the shadows of doubt that still loomed, one thing remained clear: it was time to press forward, equipped with the vision of a platform that could change lives. But the real question was, could she weather the impending storms and emerge stronger from them, or would the pressure of expectations threaten to crush the very dream she aimed to set in motion? The lingering question twisted in Lily's mind as she left the conference room. She had delivered her proposal with passion, yet the reality of the unknown loomed large. How would she manage the expectations now placed upon her? Each clap from her audience felt like a weighty promise, underscoring a responsibility she was still grappling to fully understand. In the days that followed, she found herself consumed by doubt, replaying her performance in her mind. Each time, the voice of her critic resurfaced, echoing her fears about potential setbacks. But there was another voice, one that urged her to rise above the noise. It whispered of the resilience born from adversity, reminding her of her own journey. After all, her background as the daughter of a maid had shaped her ambition. She had persistent dreams, but now they felt both achievable and terrifying. Determined not to let the pressure unravel her, Lily began to map out the next phases of her plan. She allocated time each day to research, reaching out to potential mentors and collaborators. With every conversation, she felt her confidence rebuild, like a jigsaw puzzle slowly piecing itself together. She was surprised to discover the vast knowledge shared by seasoned professionals. Their experiences were gold that she could mold into her vision. However, a part of her resisted this truth. Each interaction brought forth a familiar pang of insecurity. They had built careers from experiences she felt were just beginning. How could she position herself as an equal in these discussions? Yet, she reminded herself of her mantra: every experience is a lesson. This wasn't simply about sharing ideas, it was about learning to weave her narrative into theirs. To solidify her resolve, Lily decided to host a workshop focusing on the themes of adaptability and resilience. She envisioned it as a space where attendees could critique each other's ideas while cultivating a culture that embraced failure. The announcement on social media attracted a surprising number of sign-ups, igniting a flicker of hope within her that perhaps, just perhaps, she was onto something substantial. As the day of the workshop approached, Lily's excitement flared alongside her anxiety. The night before, she practically mirrored her professional aspirations through impromptu presentations in front of a mirror. Each attempt shakily poured forth ideals of community building, mentorship, and the acceptance of failure. It was a rehearsal that forced her to confront her weaknesses head-on, taking note of the tremors in her voice, the flickering in her gaze. On the morning of the workshop, butterflies danced in her stomach. She walked into the space, seeing familiar faces mingling with strangers. Confidence started to seep into her bones as she introduced herself, her nervousness replaced with a sense of achievement. She was ready to facilitate a dialogue not just about success stories but about the myriad ways people could learn from their missteps. As discussions unfolded, Lily grasped that the common thread binding everyone in the room was their humanity, their vulnerabilities and aspirations. The conversations transcended her expectations, a collective acknowledgement that setbacks were inevitable. She watched as participants embraced stories of failures that had once haunted them, transforming pain into growth. In that moment, she recognized her own journey reflected in their struggles. They were navigating similar tides, and it was a reminder of her true purpose. But the day took an unexpected turn when a participant challenged her on the robustness of her framework, pointing out potential flaws that had previously eluded her. It was a stark reminder that amidst the growth she had achieved, self-doubt was waiting just below the surface, ready to rear its head at the most inconvenient times. As she prepared to respond, a determination ignited within her. She remembered that every confrontation was an opportunity to grow. Did she possess the resilience she spoke of? The moment had come to put her own principles into practice. "You're absolutely right," she responded, feeling a rush of energy. "Let us delve into this together. What can we learn to mitigate these flaws?" Her question hung in the air like a lifebuoy thrown amidst turbulent seas. Would they navigate this challenge successfully together, or would it cut deeply into her resolve? The stakes were high, and her ability to steer this ship through the storm remained uncertain. As discussions deepened, Lily realized it was time she faced the storms head-on, both within the workshop and in her own life. Could she truly embrace the ambiguity of leadership, or would anxiety continue to thwart her ambitions? As the tension in the room thickened, Lily remained acutely aware of her heartbeat, driving the sense of urgency that coursed through her. The group's energy shifted, some leaned in closer, while others scribbled notes, ready to dissect her response. She could either crumble under scrutiny or demonstrate considerable growth. It was a synergy of conflict and revelation. The choice was hers. "Let us take a moment to break this down," she proposed, feeling weight lift slightly as she redirected the momentum of the conversation. Addressing the participant directly, she encouraged a collaborative approach. "What specific areas do you think could be improved?" As they began to map out their concerns, Lily felt the assertiveness of her voice grow with momentum, as did her confidence. Each critique turned into a stepping stone, a chance to engage with the participants on a deeper level. Their insights sparked new ideas, connectivity igniting within her. But amidst the collective dialogue, a disquieting realization surfaced: was she truly equipped to lead discussions, to inspire others when her own foundation still felt shaky? Yet, even as the realization darted through the corners of her mind, it was paired with lucidity. She was no longer alone in this journey. The hesitancy that plagued her began to wane. With every response, she was reshaping vulnerability into authority. The workshop continued to pulse with life as participants made connections across their stories and ideas. Challenges emerged, and Lily guided conversations towards solutions, creating a tapestry of learning that integrated her perspective with those of her peers. It felt revolutionary, not just for them but for her as well. In the moments of silence that punctuated animated discussions, she took stock of her progress. Was she not just facilitating but also revealing a hidden strength to adapt, grow, and influence? What once seemed insurmountable now felt like a collective exploration. Still, lurking behind the wave of achievement was a nagging fear: what if her newfound confidence faltered when tested in the real world? As the workshop neared its conclusion, Lily invited participants to reflect on their experiences and the lessons learned throughout the day. Her heart thumped as they shared personal breakthroughs. Her workshop wasn't merely a platform, it had become a sanctuary for authenticity. But doubt flickered back at her, a whisper keeping her grounded. Could she sustain this momentum? When an older participant, who remained reserved throughout the workshop, finally spoke up, her heart sank for a moment. You've done well, but remember, doubts will always be there. It's how you respond that defines you. In that simple statement, she recognized a blend of wisdom and challenge. They were right. Transformation didn't happen in isolation, it required an embrace of the complexities in her experience, a continuous cycle of learning from both her achievements and her failures. Yet, the shadow of fear still loomed, an ever-present entity waiting to reclaim its hold. As the final discussion drifted to a close, Lily felt a surge of determination wash over her. The applause erupted, and for the first time, she stood firm in her role, no longer just a participant but a creator of space for others. It was exhilarating, yet unsettling to realize she was now an architect of her own journey. But even as she allowed their applause to wash over her, a gnawing thought struck like lightning. What awaited her beyond this moment? The familiar voice of doubt lingered, beckoning her to confront what lay ahead. Just as the workshop concluded, her phone vibrated, a notification flashing on her screen. One of her mentors had responded. The subject line of the email cut sharply through the aftermath of her momentous day: "We need to talk. Your proposal faces significant complications." With a whirlwind of emotions swirling, she took a deep breath. This would not be the end of her growth but the catalyst for her next phase. The dance between doubt and determination was far from over. What revelations awaited her in the conversation to come? Lily stood at the threshold of her transformation, the crescendo of applause still reverberating in her ears. The workshop was a success, filling her with an electric mix of pride and anticipation. She had forged connections, shared her story, and in turn collected the narratives of others. Yet, the familiar anxiety crept back as she reviewed the message on her phone: "We need to talk. Your proposal faces significant complications." The words weighed heavy, but they also prompted clarity. Lily understood now that growth was entwined with challenge. Instead of retreating into self-doubt, she acknowledged this moment as an opportunity. Remembering Mr. Pendleton's advice, her authenticity was her strongest asset. It was time to lean into her voice, the one that had fought through countless struggles and emerged, resilient and resolute. Determined to face this head-on, she composed herself and drafted a thoughtful response, expressing eagerness to discuss her proposal's complexities. With each keystroke, Lily reaffirmed her commitment to navigating the uncertainty of innovation, an inherent part of the entrepreneurial landscape. The next day, she stepped into her cafe, armed with renewed focus. The laughter and chatter around her felt like a backdrop to her transformative journey. She was ready to take the reins, not just as a waitress but as a burgeoning leader with a vision. Conversations with potential mentors multiplied, she embraced the knowledge and insights that felt like fire igniting within her. The lingering specter of inadequacy faded as she shared her evolving proposal, adapting it in real time, shaping it based on genuine feedback. Her days grew fuller, immersed in research, gathering data, and unveiling patterns that would support her vision. Each moment spent refining her ideas felt like building blocks, solidifying her understanding of innovation from the ground up. She was developing a framework rooted in authenticity and collaboration, one that would invite others into the conversation she longed to lead. At night, when the cafe emptied, she found herself drafting detailed plans, sewing threads of creativity into practical implementations. The very act of writing transformed fear into a tapestry of hope. The more she poured into her project, the more her confidence blossomed, illuminating pathways she once thought too treacherous to travel. Weeks passed, and as her mentor's meeting approached, she felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. Yet, she wasn't the same woman who had first faced Richard. This time, she was no longer fixated on proving herself, instead, she was committed to championing her ideas based on lessons learned. The journey ahead demanded not just clarity but conviction. When she finally met with her mentor, they engaged in deep dialogue. She tackled every critique with poise, articulating a vision that resonated with her past experiences and her current aspirations. The discussion delved into solutions as they examined potential obstacles, and Lily felt vibrant as she embraced the complexities of her journey. This was not just a moment of validation, it was a dynamic exchange of ideas where her voice was heard and valued. Afterward, she excused herself from the meeting, her heart racing with exhilaration. Today marked a pivotal moment, not merely for her proposal but for her self-identity. She recognized that she had traversed from self-doubt to active participation, from the daughter of a maid to a woman with a compelling narrative capable of affecting change. As she left the office, breaths of fresh air filled her lungs like confidence revitalizing her spirit. It was not merely about the acknowledgement of her hard work but also the recognition of her capability to sustain that momentum moving forward. She had, at last, proven to herself that she deserved the opportunity she had long craved. With newfound recognition came even more concrete achievements. Invitations to panel discussions began streaming in, and other entrepreneurs sought her perspective on the grassroots innovations she was pioneering. Richard himself expressed interest in her work, opening avenues to collaborations and partnerships that could amplify her contribution to the community she sought to uplift, an opportunity that symbolized the culmination of the journey she had fiercely traversed. In her heart, Lily held the beautiful realization that setbacks were components of success rather than endpoints. Her experience had formed a bridge from her background to her aspirations, where she had wrested power from vulnerability and crafted a space for inclusion and collaboration. She was ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing success was not simply about validation, but a relentless pursuit of authenticity interlaced with resilience. In the twilight of her reflection, she felt solid confidence. The shadows of her past began to fade, intertwined with the narrative of growth and achievement radiating through her bright future. She had conquered not just her fears, but she had powerfully transformed them into a relentless sense of purpose. Now, more than ever, was the time to celebrate this journey, to rise as a beacon of authenticity so others might see that their stories too could sail into the light. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible conclusion. This is the moment to show your support for stories of overcoming and triumph.